Okay, welcome to one of the newest concepts on the Flegg Partnership. Some of you might have heard of it, some of you will have known that I've been experimenting with this concept for about the last year. And this is basically your introduction to that concept, polyphasic sleep. Now, the normal way that we sleep in the UK and most of Europe, if I'm honest, is monophasically, which is where we go to bed, we sleep for a big long chunk of time, we wake up and then we're awake all through the day. But if you think back to when you were a baby or if you've had young kids, how do we naturally sleep? Naturally, we're awake for a period of time and then we take a nap. We're awake for a period of time and we take a nap. And that's what we actually train our kids out of. So we build up their stamina and their ability to stay awake by the time they go to school. And then throughout our adult lives, we continue to sleep monophasically. What I've been reading about, researching and experimenting with over the last year or so is how we can move back to sleeping polyphasically and the advantages that that brings. There are actually, if you look back through history, loads and loads of the most productive people in the history of the world have been proven to have been sleeping polyphasically during those productive times. So if you look at Leonardo da Vinci, one of the most prolific artists, inventors of all time, slept polyphasically. Buckminster Fuller. If you look at some of the modern IT startups, if you look at Facebook, if you look at WordPress, Napster, those founders were all sleeping polyphasically whilst they were working 22 hours a day working on their projects. So how is that possible? Some of these guys have been doing this for a year, 18 months. How can you work for 22 hours a day for 18 months at a time? It defies logic. If you look at how much sleep the experts say we need, if you look at the effects of sleep deprivation, you wouldn't be able to function. And it's true. If you try and stay up and sleep monophasically for 2 or 4 hours a night, very quickly you'll enter severe sleep deprivation and won't be able to function. But that's where the polyphasic, so multiple phases of sleep in a 24-hour period, comes into it. I'm not going to go into the detail now. I will run a 202 educational concepts video for you that explains the detail of how it works. But in a nutshell, in an 8-hour period, we know that we enter REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, every 2 hours or so. So for a 2-hour period, we'll get about 20 minutes sleep, 20 minutes REM sleep. Then the next 2-hour period, we cycle out of that into light sleep, into deep sleep, and back into REM for another 20 minutes. So over the course of 8 hours, we're actually only getting 4 lots of 20 minutes, 1 hour 20, sometimes up to 2 hours of REM sleep. And therein lies the key of polyphasic sleep. What we are doing is we are retraining our bodies to go rapidly into REM sleep. So I'll give you an example of the study that the schedule that I'm following at the moment. I sleep between 10:30 p.m. and midnight, so it's an hour and a half of core sleep. I then am awake from midnight until 3:30 a.m. And that's 3.5 hours in the middle of the night, which is uninterrupted time where I get the bulk of my creative and productive work done. I then sleep from 3:30 a.m. to 5 a.m. It's another 1.5 hour block of sleep. And then from 5 a.m. till 10:30 p.m., I'm pretty much awake, other than 3 20-minute naps. And I roughly have those naps at 8 a.m., noon and at 4 p.m. So they're roughly 4-hour gaps, but you can move the naps around. And what I'm actually getting from those 5 sleeps, 3 naps and 2 core sleeps as we call them, I'm actually making sure I get my 2 hours of REM sleep. And that, if you add it all up, comes to 4 hours of sleep. 4 hours a night to be energized, functioning clearly and able to get in loads more work than you would normally. So I'll just finish off by saying that you might be sat there thinking, yeah, but I don't want to work anymore, Frank. I'm quite happy with my work-life balance. Well, so was I. I was happy with how much I was working, how much time I was spending with my kids, how much leisure time I was getting. But I decided a year ago that I wanted to drastically improve my earnings. I wanted to drastically improve my income. I wanted to spend as much time with the kids as if I didn't work, as if I was already retired, and that I wanted to run an Ironman. And some of you know an Ironman, it's going to take me about 16 hours to run it and requires about 20 hours a week training. So I was happy with my work-life balance and perhaps could have done one of those three, but certainly not all three. So what polyphasic sleep, that schedule I've just described to you, has enabled me to do, it's enabled me to do the bulk of my work when the kids and the family are asleep, my wife and kids are asleep. So I've deliberately designed it, if you look at that schedule, and these schedules can be tailor-made to yourself so long as you follow the principles and rules that I'm going to lay out in the 202 version of this educational concept. But I've designed my one so that I am awake for when the kids and my family have breakfast. So when they get up, I'm already awake, I've already cleared my inbox, I have nothing pressing to do. And then I have my last nap at 4 p.m. so that when they get back from school, I'm done for the day. I can enjoy my whole afternoon and evening with my family. What that means is I get the bulk of my productive time, the bulk of my demand time, and my training, all when the rest of the world is asleep. And that really makes a massive difference to my work-life balance. And the time will tell, but I think I'm on track to achieve those three objectives that I mentioned earlier. So that's a brief overview of polyphasic sleep. I will do a more in-depth description of how you can design your own sleep schedule and how you can transition from monophasic to polyphasic whilst maintaining productivity. I'll see you then.